For decades, Clint Eastwood was seen as the calmest man in Hollywood. Quiet, disciplined, and untouchable, he built a reputation as someone who let his work speak louder than words. He didn't chase attention, didn't argue publicly, and didn't explain himself. But behind that silence was a strict personal code. Loyalty mattered, discipline mattered, and once someone crossed the line, Clint Eastwood never forgot and never forgave. At the age of 95, stories from sets, collaborators, and insiders paint a very different picture of the legend. Not a loud or angry man, but one who believed in cutting people out completely when they disappointed him. Over the years, 6 major names became permanently erased from his world. These were not strangers. They were stars who worked beside him, shared success with him, and then lost his respect forever. The first name on that list is Leonardo DiCaprio. When J. Edgar began filming in 2010, the pairing seemed perfect. Eastwood was known for his calm, efficient directing style, while DiCaprio was famous for his intensity and deep preparation. But from the very beginning, their approaches clashed. DiCaprio arrived on set every day with folders of notes, historical research, and detailed questions. He wanted to analyze every moment. Clint Eastwood hated that. Eastwood believed acting should be instinctive. 1 or 2 takes were enough. DiCaprio, on the other hand, kept pushing for more. The breaking point came during an emotional scene. DiCaprio delivered a powerful performance in 1 take. Clint quietly said, "Perfect. Cut." But DiCaprio asked to do it again and again. By the 6th take, Eastwood had walked away from the camera, visibly irritated. When someone asked how he felt, he reportedly said, "He's still searching for something I already found." After filming ended, there was no fight and no public drama, just silence. Clint never worked with DiCaprio again. When his name came up in casting discussions, Eastwood would simply say, "Great actor, but not my kind." DiCaprio went on to win an Oscar, but he never received another call from Clint Eastwood. For Clint, perfection wasn't about repetition. It was about trusting the first moment and moving on. The second name is Michael Moore. This was never a collaboration, but became one of Clint Eastwood's strongest grudges. The tension began years earlier, but it exploded when Moore compared American Sniper to Nazi propaganda. To Eastwood, this wasn't criticism. It was disrespect, especially towards soldiers. Clint had always believed deeply in honoring service and sacrifice. Years before that comment, Eastwood had already shown his feelings. At an awards ceremony in 2005, he publicly said that if Michael Moore ever showed up at his door with a camera, he'd kill him. The audience laughed nervously. Clint did not smile. People who knew him understood it wasn't a joke. It was a warning. When Moore later mocked American Sniper online, Clint's response was simple. He erased Moore from his world completely. No public statement. No interviews. Nothing. According to people close to him, Eastwood doesn't argue. He deletes. And once someone is deleted, they're gone for good. The third name is Barbra Streisand. This feud wasn't loud, but it was deep. Both were transitioning from acting to directing, but their styles could not have been more different. Streisand was known for extreme control, sometimes doing 40 or 50 takes for a single scene. Eastwood believed anything beyond 2 takes was a waste of time. To Clint, Streisand represented everything he disliked about modern filmmaking: overthinking, hesitation, and ego. Their creative philosophies clashed for years, quietly turning into mutual contempt. When Streisand failed to receive a Best Director nomination for The Prince of Tides, Eastwood was overheard making a sharp comment about how indecision limits productivity. The remark spread quickly through Hollywood. The situation became even more symbolic when The Bridges of Madison County came along. Streisand had been attached to the project, but dropped out after years of delay. Eastwood stepped in, finished the film efficiently, and turned it into a critical success. He never publicly attacked her, but the message was clear. Since then, they've avoided each other entirely. To Clint, instinct mattered more than control, and Streisand stood for the opposite. The fourth name is Tommy Lee Jones. When they worked together on In the Line of Fire in 1993, many expected sparks in a good way. Instead, it It became a quiet power struggle. Jones was intense, aggressive, and stayed in character long after scenes ended. Eastwood ran his sets calmly and efficiently. The contrast caused tension almost immediately. Jones often questioned direction, rewrote lines, and continued performing after Clint called cut. During one confrontation scene, Jones reportedly kept acting even after the director yelled cut, staring directly at Eastwood. The crew went silent. Clint paused, then calmly told his assistant, "Life's too short for that kind of theater," and walked away. That moment sealed their future. Eastwood never worked with Jones again. When asked about him later, Clint would only say, "Great actor, but we don't speak the same language." In Eastwood's world, there was room for only one authority on set, and it wasn't negotiable. The fifth name is Richard Burton. Their conflict happened much earlier, during the filming of Where Eagles Dare in 1968. This wasn't about ego. It was about professionalism. Burton struggled with alcohol and often arrived late, unprepared, or visibly drunk. Clint, who was always punctual and ready, watched silently as production slowed down because of Burton. Eastwood never yelled. He never lectured, but his respect faded with every delayed take. When Burton repeatedly forgot lines, Clint reportedly muttered, "I'm getting paid by the picture, not by the hour." The final insult came when Burton referred to the film as just a paycheck. To Eastwood, that was unforgivable. Years later, Clint summed it up with just 2 words: talented guy. Wasted talent. He never worked with Burton again and never spoke about him after that. The final name is Gene Seberg. Their conflict came during Paint Your Wagon in 1969. Seberg was emotionally fragile and politically controversial at the time. On set, she was unpredictable, sometimes warm and charming, other times withdrawn and uncooperative. Clint Eastwood was the opposite: focused, disciplined, and uninterested in emotional chaos. She often stopped scenes to question motivation or direction, something Clint deeply disliked. He believed preparation happened before the camera rolled, not during filming. The real damage came after the film failed. Seberg publicly criticized Eastwood's performance, blaming him for the movie's downfall. To Clint, that was betrayal. Criticizing a colleague publicly after a difficult production crossed a line he never allowed anyone to cross. From that point on, he never mentioned her name again. When Seberg died tragically in 1979, Clint remained silent. Friends say he was saddened, but he never softened his stance. In the end, Clint Eastwood's story isn't about anger. It's about boundaries. He didn't scream, insult, or expose people publicly. He simply removed them from his life. To him, silence was the strongest response. Loyalty, discipline, and respect were non-negotiable. So the question remains, was Clint Eastwood right to cut these people out, or did his silence go too far? That answer depends on what you believe matters more: second chances or strict principles. One thing is certain: Clint Eastwood lived by his code until the very end, and once you broke it, there was no way back.